Evelyn Carter had spent 32 years in the same house. Every corner held a memory. The kitchen where she had cooked thousands of meals. The small garden where her husband, Thomas, had planted roses before he died. And the upstairs bedroom where she had raised her only daughter, Sophie. But one cold evening, Evelyn stood outside her own front door with a suitcase in her hand. Her daughter was standing in front of her. "Mom, I'm sorry. You have to leave." Evelyn stared at her. "Leave? Sophie, this is my home." Sophie looked away. "I know." "Then why are you doing this?" Before Sophie could answer, her husband Ryan stepped forward. "Because you can't stay here anymore." Evelyn looked at him in disbelief. "Who gave you the right to decide that?" Ryan smiled coldly. "The house isn't really yours." Evelyn's heart stopped. "What did you just say?" Sophie suddenly began crying. "Mom, please don't make this harder." Evelyn looked at her daughter, the little girl she had raised alone after Thomas died, the child she had sacrificed everything for, and now that same daughter was asking her to leave. Evelyn picked up her suitcase. "One day, Sophie, you're going to discover the truth." Then she walked away. She didn't know that only 3 days later, her daughter would find an old document hidden inside her father's desk. And that single document would completely change everything she believed about her mother. Evelyn spent the night in a small motel across town. She barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Sophie standing at the door. "Mom, I'm sorry. You have to leave." Those words kept repeating in her mind. The next morning, Evelyn called her daughter. Sophie answered after several rings. "Mom, can I ask you one question?" There was silence. "Why did you believe Ryan instead of me?" Sophie sighed. "Mom, it's not that simple." "Then explain it to me." "I can't." Evelyn felt tears filling her eyes. "You threw me out of my own home, Sophie. After everything I did for you. I know." "No, you don't know." Evelyn's voice broke. "You don't know how many nights I went hungry so you could eat. You don't know how many jobs I worked after your father died. I gave you everything I had." "I know, Mom." "Then why did you do this?" Sophie didn't answer. Evelyn heard someone speaking in the background. It was Ryan. "Who are you talking to?" Sophie quickly lowered her voice. "Mom, I have to go." The call ended. Evelyn stared at her phone. Something wasn't right. Sophie didn't sound angry. She sounded scared. That afternoon, Evelyn returned to the house. She didn't go inside. Instead, she stood across the street and watched the windows. Then she saw Ryan leave. He was carrying a large brown envelope. Evelyn watched him get into his car. But before he drove away, he stopped. He looked directly at her. And suddenly, Evelyn realized something terrifying. Ryan knew she was watching. He smiled, then drove away. Evelyn immediately called Sophie again. This time, her daughter didn't answer. And for the first time, Evelyn began to wonder if her daughter hadn't thrown her out willingly at all. Evelyn waited until Ryan's car disappeared. Then she crossed the street and walked toward her old home. She wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. She only wanted to know why her daughter was afraid. As she reached the front gate, she noticed something strange. The kitchen window was slightly open. Evelyn knew that window. It had been broken years ago, and Thomas had repaired it himself. She walked around the house and looked through the glass. The kitchen was empty, but then she heard a sound. Someone was crying. Evelyn froze. It was Sophie. "Mom?" There was no answer. Evelyn quietly opened the window and climbed inside. She found Sophie sitting on the kitchen floor, holding an old photograph. Sophie looked up in shock. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Evelyn rushed toward her. "Are you okay?" Sophie quickly wiped her tears. "I'm fine." "No, you're not." Evelyn sat beside her. "Tell me what Ryan is hiding." Sophie looked toward the hallway. Then she whispered, "Ryan found something in Dad's office." Evelyn's heart began pounding. "What did he find?" Sophie shook her head. "I don't know." "Then why are you afraid?" Sophie looked directly into her mother's eyes. "Because Ryan said if I told you the truth..." She stopped. Evelyn grabbed her hand. "What truth?" Sophie began crying again. "He said you would lose everything." Evelyn stared at her daughter. Then she noticed the photograph in Sophie's hand. It was a picture of Thomas. But standing beside him was a woman Evelyn had never seen before. And written on the back of the photograph were 4 words. "She knows the truth." Evelyn's hands began to shake. "Who is she?" Sophie looked at her mother. "I was hoping you could tell me." Evelyn took the photograph from Sophie's hands. "I've never seen this woman before." Sophie stared at her. "Are you sure?" "Of course I'm sure." Evelyn turned the photograph over again. "Where did you find this?" "In Dad's desk." Evelyn's heart began racing. "Ryan found it first, didn't he?" Sophie nodded. "He said it proved Dad had been hiding something from you." Evelyn looked at the photograph. For 32 years, she had believed she knew everything about her husband. But now she wasn't so sure. "Did Ryan show you anything else?" Sophie hesitated. "He found an old property document." Evelyn immediately looked at her. "What document?" "I don't know exactly, but Ryan said Dad had secretly transferred ownership of this house years ago." Evelyn's face went pale. "That's impossible." "That's what I thought. Thomas would never do that." Sophie lowered her voice. "Mom, Ryan said the house was never yours." Evelyn stood up. "Your father bought this house before you were even born." "I know. Then why would he transfer it?" Sophie suddenly grabbed her mother's hand. "Because he didn't transfer it to Ryan." Evelyn froze. "Then who?" Sophie looked terrified. "I don't know." Before Evelyn could answer, they heard a car stopping outside. Ryan was back. Sophie quickly stood up. "Mom, you have to hide." "Why?" "Because he can't know you're here." Evelyn stared at her daughter. "You're afraid of your own husband." Sophie began crying. "Mom, please." Evelyn stepped toward the hallway. But before she could hide, the front door opened. Ryan walked inside. He stopped when he saw Evelyn. His face turned completely white. Then he looked at Sophie. And for the first time, Evelyn saw something in his eyes that frightened her more than anger. "Fear," Ryan whispered. She wasn't supposed to find out yet. Ryan slowly closed the front door. Evelyn didn't move. "What wasn't I supposed to find out?" Ryan looked at Sophie. "Tell her." Sophie shook her head. "No." Ryan's voice became cold. "Sophie, tell your mother the truth." Evelyn stepped between them. "Don't speak to my daughter like that." Ryan laughed bitterly. "Your daughter? You still don't understand." "Understand what?" Ryan looked at the photograph in Evelyn's hand. "That woman was your husband's first wife." Evelyn felt the room spinning. "What?" Sophie covered her mouth. Ryan continued. "Thomas was married before he met you." Evelyn stared at the photograph. "No, that's a lie." "I wish it were." Ryan pulled an old document from his jacket. "This is the original property deed." Evelyn took it. Her hands trembled as she read it. The house had never been transferred to Ryan. It had been transferred to Sophie. Evelyn looked at her daughter. "Sophie." Sophie began crying. "I didn't know." Evelyn couldn't speak. Ryan stepped closer. "Your father secretly put the house in Sophie's name 20 years ago." "Why?" Ryan looked at her. "Because he knew someone would eventually try to take it from you." Evelyn stared at the document. "Who?" Ryan's expression changed. "Your husband's first wife." Evelyn looked at the photograph again. Then Ryan whispered, "She's alive." Evelyn's heart stopped. "Where is she?" Ryan looked toward the front door. "She's been living across the street." Evelyn slowly turned toward the window. And standing behind the glass was the woman from the photograph. Evelyn slowly walked toward the window. The woman was gone. Where did she go? Ryan looked terrified. "She was here a moment ago." Sophie suddenly grabbed her mother's arm. "Mom, we have to leave." Evelyn shook her head. "No, I'm done running." She turned to Ryan. "Tell me everything." Ryan finally broke down. "Your husband didn't transfer the house because he wanted to hurt you. He did it to protect you." "Protect me from what?" Ryan looked at Sophie. "From her." Evelyn's heart sank. "Who is she?" Ryan whispered. "Thomas's first wife." Then Sophie suddenly remembered something. The woman in the photograph wasn't a stranger. She had seen her before. At her father's funeral. Sophie looked at her mother. "Mom." She was there that day. Evelyn froze. Then she remembered. A woman had stood far away, watching the funeral. But there was something else. The woman had been holding a little boy's hand. Evelyn looked at Ryan. "Who was that child?" Ryan didn't answer. Sophie suddenly whispered, "Mom, I think he's my brother." Evelyn's entire world stopped. And then someone knocked on the door. 3 slow knocks. Evelyn opened it. The woman from the photograph was standing there. She looked at Evelyn and said, Thomas never told you the truth. Then she looked at Sophie. But your father left something for both of you. She held out a small envelope, and on it was written one name, Sophie. Sophie stared at the envelope. Why is my name on this? The woman looked at her. Because your father wanted you to know the truth. Sophie opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a letter from Thomas. He had written that the woman was not his first wife. She was his sister. The child she had been holding at the funeral was her son. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. Then why did you hide all this? The woman looked at her. Because Thomas asked me to. He knew Ryan was trying to control the house. He knew that one day Ryan would turn Sophie against you. Sophie looked at Ryan in shock. You knew? Ryan lowered his head. I was in debt. I thought if I controlled the house I could save myself. Evelyn felt tears running down her face. You destroyed your own family for money. Ryan began crying. I was wrong. Sophie walked toward her mother. Mom, I'm sorry. Evelyn looked at her daughter. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Sophie hugged her. Evelyn held her tightly. She had lost her home for a few days, but she had almost lost something far more important. Her daughter. Evelyn whispered. I can forgive you, Sophie. Sophie cried harder. But trust takes time. I understand. Evelyn looked at the house. The place where she had spent 32 years. This time she didn't feel like a woman who had been thrown out. She felt like a mother who had finally found her daughter again. And as they walked inside together, Evelyn realized something she would never forget. Sometimes the truth doesn't destroy a family. Sometimes the truth is what finally brings it back together.